there, and the Minister for Education, etc., Honorable Sean Edward. Apart from these distinguished ladies and gentlemen, lady and gentlemen, I wish to adopt the protocol already established by Mrs. Jolie Fannis. Where is Mrs. Fannis? Mr. Chairman, permit me, before I commence my address, to express my condolences to the family and friends of Augustus Gus Small on his passing last month. I had hoped to attend the funeral service and burial on Friday, but that didn't prove possible. So I'm happy that I have the opportunity this afternoon to convey my sympathies to his family and friends, especially his wife Joan and his children, and including his Monroe family and friends. I will only add on that note that being here today is entirely on account of Gus, who first decided in 2021 that I should deliver the commencement address. I was not able, and quite frankly, not inclined to do so then or up to last year, mainly because I was holding offices until then that I preferred not to, at that time, address the commencement ceremony. Since May of this year, I've been liberated from any positions and titles, so I can now kind of do what I want. So I did promise Gus earlier this year that I will deliver the address this year. And though he decided not to wait for it, I will nonetheless deliver it in his honor. So this address is in honor of the former Dean of Administration and Campus Operations of Monroe University St. Lucia campus, Mr. Augustus Gus Small, whose insistence and persistence overcame my resistance and reticence. Nearly 3 years ago, following the general elections of May 1997, I assumed portfolio responsibility for the Ministry of Education in St. Lucia. One of my early pronouncements as minister was to establish universal secondary education in St. Lucia within 10 years. At that time, just under 40% of our primary school children attained places in 15 secondary schools after completing the Common Entrance exam, which was at the time the placement exam for entry into secondary school. Within the promised 10 years, St. Lucia did achieve universal secondary education when every child who sat the Common Entrance exam in June 2006 was assigned to one of the 24 secondary schools in St. Lucia, 8 of which were established between 1997 and 2006, and another, the SD Academy, was added, at least for that year, to the list of secondary schools to which children were assigned after the Common Entrance exam. Once the objective of universal secondary education was achieved, the next step in the progression of the national education trajectory was to significantly enhance the number of university-trained citizens in the country. In 2003, Prime Minister Owen Arthur of Barbados announced in his budget address that Barbados would pursue the objective of having one university graduate per household by 2020. Although the objective was not achieved by 2020, or even now, Barbados has made significant progress towards achieving it, and there are many more university graduates in Barbados today than there were in 2003. And the country is immensely better off for this. In St. Lucia, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre announced in 2023 that it was the policy of the government of St. Lucia to pursue this objective of having one university graduate per household in the country. In the 2 years since the policy was announced, the government has been vigorously pursuing this objective. But of course, this is not a short-term objective that can be achieved within, say, a 5-year period, as the Barbados experience has in fact revealed. It is a long-term objective that requires a sustained effort over time to achieve it. But where are we now? October 19th, 2025, on the cusp of releasing another set of St. Lucian graduates into our society, our economy, our polity. Based on the data that I have been able to cull together, sourced from the Human Resource Development Department of the Ministry of Education, and from various internet sources, it appears that the number of university graduates in St. Lucia is in the region of 10% of the national population. That is, about 18,000 university graduates out of a population of about 180,000 people. Quite frankly, this in my view appears to be a generous estimate, because it means that 1 out of every 10 people in St. Lucia, man, woman, and child, is a university graduate. This does not appear to square with our lived experience in St. Lucia, but that's what the numbers tell us, and so I will accept it. Then there is the question of how many households there are in St. Lucia at this time, to determine how many more graduates we need to achieve the target of 1 university graduate per household. According to the 2020 Population and Housing Census, there are 65,591 households in St. Lucia. Again, a surprisingly high number, which means that there are on average less than 3 persons in a household in St. Lucia. Again, not really appearing to square with our lived experience. But again, it is the number provided by the Central Statistics Office, and so I will be guided by it. So, based on these numbers, both seeming to be higher than we might have thought, there is 1 university graduate to every 3 or 4 households in St. Lucia. To achieve the target of 1 university graduate per household, therefore, and based on the available numbers, it would be necessary to triple or quadruple the existing number of graduates. The attainment of the target of 1 university graduate per household, therefore, requires not just the incremental increase of, say, up to 400 or even 500 new graduates every year obtaining degrees, diplomas, or certificates from universities, but it requires also an aggressive acceleration of tuition assistance and bursaries to deserving applicants, and a significant and sustained stream of scholarships. To accomplish this, the government requires a willing and able partner in the business of tertiary education. The government of Cuba has from 1980 been a major contributor to St. Lucia's increase in its stock of university graduates, particularly in the field of medicine. The government of Taiwan has since 2007 been awarding scholarships as well to St. Lucian students. The government of Morocco has also been awarding scholarships to St. Lucian students since 2019. Some American universities, like Grambling State University and Midwestern University, also helped along the way to increase our stock of graduates. But these universities tend to not linger much longer after having attained their primary objective at the time in undertaking their scholarship programs, whether it was to meet diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI targets in the US, to enhance the quality of entrance to their universities, or for some other cause aligned to the best interests of the universities concerned. So that apart from the government of Cuba, which has continued over the last 45 years to provide fully funded scholarships to scores of St. Lucian students every year, and with Taiwan and more recently Morocco heading in that direction, we have not, as a country, been able to sustain a committed long-term relationship with a suitable partner in the university community. As Shakespeare would put it, enter Monroe University. From my research online and information from the St. Lucia campus administration, to which I must refer in developing one of the central themes of my address, the institution now known as Monroe University started life in 1933, but received accreditation from the Middle States Commission on Higher Education in New York as a degree-granting institution in 1990 and became known from then as Monroe College. In August last year, the institution attained university status and was renamed appropriately Monroe University. Since its establishment as a college in 1990 and continuing with its transition to a university last year, Monroe University has educated and certificated about 65,000 students with certificates, associate, bachelor's, and master's degrees. Between 2005 and 2006, Monroe University began a courtship with St. Lucia, which matured into a living relationship in 2007 when the then Monroe College established a home in St. Lucia at Barnard's Hill in Castries. By 2016, the Monroe family in St. Lucia had grown immensely, indeed exponentially, and its Barnard Hill residence had become too small to accommodate the family. And so it was that Monroe College, as it was still called then, relocated to Vidbouteille in Castries, which is now the home of Monroe University, St. Lucia campus. In the 18 years since its operation in St. Lucia as Monroe College, Monroe University has educated and certificated nearly 2,000 students at its St. Lucia campus, most of those students being St. Lucians, with certificates and associate, bachelor's, and master's degrees in several different subjects and fields of study, including in the field of criminal justice, where Monroe started its relationship with St. Lucia. Monroe College has also recently collaborated with the government of St. Lucia in establishing what is called the First Generation Full Scholarship Program, which offers full tuition and book waivers to qualifying St. Lucian students who are first in their family to attend university. 50 such scholarships were awarded in the last academic year, and this was increased to 75 this year, with Monroe University and the government of St. Lucia sharing the cost of the scholarship awards to St. Lucian students. All of this is commendable, but more is needed. Indeed, much more, if Monroe University is to travel with us to the destination of one university graduate per household. You know, in the United States of America, where Monroe University was born, and which remains its principal residence, the government has developed what they call special relationships with selected countries, like Israel, for example. In the course of these special relationships, the United States of America has provided billions of dollars in financial and material support, including military support, to some of the countries with which it has special relationships, and has thereby enabled these countries to progress and develop immensely, and sometimes to do other things about which I will not speak, because of the guarantee of support and assistance from their well-endowed special friend. Mr. President and members of the Board of Monroe University, this is the sort of special relationship which St. Lucia seeks from the